Scheiße, Mistuk, Arschloch. Now, I just said several words which, if said in English, would get me promptly sent to the principal's office. But even if I tell you that Scheiße means the S word, and that Arschloch means a-hole, I'm still not going to get sent to the principal's office. At least I hope not. But you don't react to the words in the same way that you would if I said them in English. But why is that? Well, it's because from the time we're children, ingrained in us is this certain idea that certain words are bad words, that certain words are swear words. That's why, according to Warsaw University, bilingual speakers who didn't grow up with these beliefs imposed upon them actually swear more often and freely than their native-speaking counterparts. And so, they often speak because they're not subject to those same social norms, because they didn't grow up with them. Today we'll be going over the history of these swear words, the origins, what makes them bad in their different contexts, and then finally, the different uses we have for them in our modern day. Swearing goes so far back as to be mentioned in the Bible. There it was mainly considered to be blasphemous speech and speech that was using God's name in vain, both of which were strictly forbidden. But as time went on, that short list was expanded upon so that we could get our current wide array of blasphemous speech that we know and love today. Generally, words describing inappropriate and subject matter such as reproduction and defecation were considered to be profanity. And this kind of had a classist background as well, because the wealthy in the Middle Ages would consider names for body parts to be profanity and look down on the poor and impoverished for using those terms and not their new updated ones like limbs and unmentionables. But in our modern day, what delineates an inappropriate use of these words from an appropriate one? Is there even such thing as an appropriate use for some of these words? Well, for me, it comes down to two main aspects: denotation and connotation. I'm going to have to ask you all to rewind all the way back to semester 1, English 110, where we were learning about many different new literary terms, among which were denotation and connotation. Denotation being the literal meaning of a word, and connotation being kind of like the feeling evoked by it. So me and my team of researchers have come up with a nice handy graph to figure out the acceptability of different words. So, on the left, we have inappropriate language. This is your poo-poo, dang it, crap, kind of like your potty language. These ones have a relatively positive connotation when compared to the other words on the list, and their denotation is similarly pretty tame, although it's still enough to get you scolded in elementary school. Trust me, I know. Next up in the middle, we have our classic swears. This is your A word, your S word, your F word. You know, the four-letter swears. These ones have a much wider connotation, as there's a vast difference between saying H-E double hockey sticks, as me and my brother like to call it, and the F word. They also have a wider denotation, ranging from meaning to strike to fornicate. And then, on the right, we have derogatory terms. Some words were made with the sole purpose of belittling other groups of people and thus are scarcely justifiable. As with the other words, though, they weren't originally created with this same malice. Denotation stayed the same as their positive counterparts, but society chose arbitrarily random words to have this negative connotation to them for seemingly little reason. George Carlin once said, "There are no bad words, bad thoughts, bad intentions, but no bad words." Now, I can't say I agree with him entirely. As I said before, there are some words that were originally created with ill intent and thus can scarcely have good intentions behind them. But I do agree that it's the thoughts and intentions behind your words that give them their power. Which brings me to my last point. Depending on how you use your words, they can have wildly different meanings. According to Steven Pinker, swearing falls into 5 different possible categories. Abusive, cathartic, dysphamistic, emphatic, and idiomatic. Abusive is pretty self-explanatory. It's exactly what it sounds like. Language that is purely made to be abusive, offensive to other people or things. Next, we have cathartic. This is like when you stub your toe and let a swear word slip. It's swearing for the purpose as a response to negative stimuli, whether that be physical or emotional. And then that response can actually alleviate some pain. According to Keele University, participants allowed to swear actually kept their hand in ice water for 50% longer than those who weren't allowed to swear. Dysphamistic is similar to abusive, but it's more so to convey negative feelings on the subject at hand rather than a direct attack on it. Emphatic is kind of used as an intensifier in conversation, used to put emphasis on certain words, and is probably the most common use of swear words today. And then finally, we have idiomatic. Idiomatic is swearing for no other reason than to convey a casual and informal tone with the audience or listener. Caleb's use of the F word in his most embarrassing moment speech falls under this category. Depending on the context of people's words, they can have different meanings. It's not exactly the words, but the way they're used that gives them their true meaning. Now, I'm not going to go around saying that you have to swear like a sailor as if there's no tomorrow, but I am saying that it shouldn't be treated as harshly as it is today, especially within the certain context that it can be. Sure. In some instances, swearing is purely used as a negative way when it's being used abusively or derogatorily. But there are clear social and even health benefits when used within the right context. Many times I've heard people's condescending opinion on swearing. According to the BBC, there are 171,146 words in the English language, and yet your primitive mind has to resort to saying crass profanities and imprecations. How unimaginative. And the only thing I have to say to those people is, you're an arschloch.